Hello and welcome back to the Sacred Plant Healing Secrets Exposed. I'm your host, John Malanca. Thank you for joining us on our final episode. What's next and how it impacts us all. I spent the last 7 years learning what we've shared with you in the last 6 episodes. This series was created to inform and inspire you that cannabis is a real and viable natural solution. This series educates and empowers you to inform your own outlook on cannabis and to consider it as an option in your prevention or treatment plans to vibrant health. We couldn't do this without those of you who shared this on social media and via email, as well as the generous and loving souls who have purchased the series, which helps make this all possible. I promise you, we will continue to share these series with as many people as possible, and we'll do more research and share it for free as well. Your support will have a ripple effect that can easily change and save thousands of people's lives. In our last episode, we explained the science behind proper dosing. We looked at some of the surprising benefits of cannabis for healthy people, especially how it can reverse the aging process in senior citizens. We followed Jill as she made her first visit to the local dispensary to find her medicine for her stage 4 cancer. And Patricia received good news on her PET scans, so is now confident that the cannabis oil is slowing the spread of her cancer. Coming up in this final episode, we'll update you on the many patients that you've met throughout our series. You'll hear more about the new advances in medical cannabis and what they mean for patients. You'll also get a backstage look into a cannabis conference at Harvard Medical School. This final episode is going to bring some major news for Patricia and Jill, who have been following closely throughout our series. Jill received a new set of scans to see if the cannabis has helped fight her stage 4 cancer, while Patricia decides whether to undergo whole brain radiation. Buckle your seatbelts as this episode is full of drama, excitement, and more vital information about the sacred plant. First, let's see what happened with Patricia's recent brain scan. In our last episode, Patricia's PET scans of her lungs came back completely clean, which her doctor found remarkable. This is where her cancer originated before it metastasized to her brain. Let's see what happened with Patricia's latest set of brain scans.
I got the most recent report and was in for a small surprise. It mentions that there was generalized progression despite partial improvement at the medial right occipital lobe. Partial improvement. The doctor didn't say anything about that. So now I better take another look at all my brain scans before deciding about whole brain radiation. Does cannabis allow me to postpone it one more time? In 9 months, I had 8, possibly 9 metastases in my brain. In August, I started taking cannabis. In the next 8 months, I had 2 plus a partial improvement. It's pretty impressive. But is it impressive enough? Postponing radiation probably means faster death. Acceptance and my life as a scholar is most likely over.
Patricia has a tough choice to make about whether to submit to whole brain radiation. Now let's go behind the scenes of the CanMed conference at Harvard Medical School. This conference features some of the most brilliant minds working in cannabis medicine today, including some of our own experts like Raphael Mechoulam and Dr. Dustin Sulak. Brian McKernan, the CEO and co-founder of Cortigen Life Sciences, talks about why his company chose to host this groundbreaking conference at Harvard.
Well, Boston is one of the hubs of science and medicine in the world, and we felt it was important to frame this conference, which is all around bringing thought leaders, whether they're scientists, whether they're physicians, whether they're entrepreneurs, professional athletes, press, everybody who has a vested interest in learning more about this together here at Harvard Medical School. And our goal here is really to move the science forward. We want data, we want science, we want conversation. So this conference is all about bringing the greatest thought leaders from around the world. We have Dr. Raphael Mechoulam here to sort of be really our scientific anchor of the conference. He is a world-renowned scientist. He is the first person to discover the active compound THC in cannabis and the subsequent compounds such as CBD in cannabis. And so Dr. Mechoulam's involvement was absolutely critical for us to bring the credibility and to really have the thought-provoking and the good sort of dialogues with everybody here around this subject in a very positive way that benefits patients.
Would you say that giving cannabidiol in conjunction with the traditional chemotherapy and radiation for its ability to work as a neuroprotectant and enhance cytotoxic uptake would be our best bet for right now.
Without any, I couldn't have this type of conversation 2 or 3 years ago. We couldn't host this conference 2 or 3 years ago. They wouldn't show up. But now, Orrin Devinsky, who is one of the top epileptologists in the country out of NYU, is one of our speakers at the conference. I don't have to explain how credible he is and what he's saying. The data is rolling out and is coming at us in good stride, and we just have to keep the momentum going. I can think of no better place to host the first annual CanMed conference than here at Harvard Medical School. So welcome. Folks, this is a very personal matter for everybody here in the crowd. It is a personal matter for people out in the United States, around the world. And as I stand here in front of you today, I'm here to tell you that we are all in on this. We are all in on this subject with you because this subject matters. We want to take this technology into the clinic. The scientific world has invested millions and billions of dollars into sequencing. Let's make a difference for patients. So we all agree there needs to be more data, more science. We need more stories to get out, patient stories. We need clinical trials and all of those things. But we feel very strongly, based on what we've seen, based on the physicians with whom we've worked, these are legitimate pediatric neurologists. They're top epileptologists around the country that are working with patients suffering with severe seizures and things of that nature. These patients are benefiting from cannabis.
So one of the discoveries that I made a couple years ago came from a mom who came back with her seizure child and said, this CBD is really working well to reduce seizures. So we ran the test and we found that there was no CBD in the bottle. There was also no THC in the bottle. And there was quite a small amount of THCA. And this was a very surprising finding to me. So
yes, THCA is a hot topic currently, being that it's non-psychoactive. Many people are seeing incredible results with THCA, and this comes in the form of juicing the cannabis plant. If you were to have a plant in your home and you juice it just like wheatgrass, that is THCA. That is the acid form of cannabinoids. People see great results when juicing the plant. It also helps with cancers. It helps with autoimmune. It's an incredible anti-inflammatory. I mean, the list goes on. But the juicing of the plant becomes a challenge because there aren't a lot of people that have access to that quantity of raw plant matter, green plant matter, not dried.
Scientists and doctors acknowledge we're only at the beginning of truly understanding all the unique therapeutic compounds in the sacred plant. You heard Dr. Sulak talk about one of those compounds, which is called THCA, not to be confused with THC. THCA is a non-psychoactive cannabinoid found in raw and live cannabis. THCA is converted to THC as the plant dries or is heated up. Preliminary research suggests that THCA may play a pivotal role in treating arthritis, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, appetite loss, insomnia, and pain. Since THCA is only present in the raw form of the plant, juicing is an excellent way to ingest it. In our first episode, you saw how Kristen was able to put her lupus and rheumatoid arthritis in remission by juicing the plant. Now let's learn the best methods of raw juicing this plant and get a detailed tutorial on how to grow your own medicine.
So far I have apple cider and rice milk and yogurt, and then apples, grapes, and you can put anything you want in it. I like flax oil every day and hemp fiber and hemp protein, but it's really depends on what you like. It's good to put a fat with it, like the yogurt or milk, because it will absorb into your fat cells better and it will work faster. You want it as fresh as possible, but if you keep it in a green bag, it'll last like 10 days. The fresher you're getting it, the less time it's had to age and have any kind of decomposition, and the terpenes and the flavonoids and all of those really good medicinal ingredients will be strong. And this is from our plants. It's the fresh bud, and we kept it in the freezer. The bud is stronger than the leaf. It has a higher cannabinoid content, and the longer you let it age, then it can start to decarboxylate and it might start to make you high then. So with bud, you want to just make sure you use it up quickly. You could get the same effect using 50 or more leaves as you could with half an ounce of bud. It's just sometimes easier to use less material, especially for people that they don't like juicing, they don't like raw food, and they just want to use as little as possible to get the job done. Other people like to eat the plant raw. They'll put it in a pesto or a salsa. When you have the plant, it will go into a vegetative state first, and you'll have all of the leaf. And then as the plant's light cycle is interrupted, it starts to think it's fall, and now it's time to produce flowers, or buds, or what they're traditionally called. And then the plant will produce the flowers, and then it will die after that. So you can either keep a plant in a vegetative state by making sure that it has more than 18 hours of light a day consistently, and then you can pluck leaf off it every day, and the plant will be quick to recover after it's had its leaves stripped. It'll grow back, and it'll grow back even bigger because it's a weed, which makes it easy to grow. When you flower the plant or bud it, you get a stronger effect from the juicing, and you need less material, but it's just going to go through the life cycle, and then you're going to need to start growing again. So if you want to be able to have access to bud every day, you need to start a seed every day, and you need to immediately either get an auto-flowering seed, which is the kind of seed where regardless of light, the plant will start flowering, or you can manipulate it by giving it 12 hours or less of light per day. And then the plant will start putting all of its energy into flowering immediately. So you could have enough bud from one plant to eat at the end of about 30 days. And if you started one every day, then you would constantly replenish. It's a little trickier to set up in the beginning, but I've seen people do it and they don't use anything bigger than the red plastic party cups. And so the plants don't get very big, and they can have the entire setup in a closet. So we have a lot of seriously ill patients that are doing that pretty successfully.
It's a very exciting time in cannabis research. The list of conditions which a sacred plant can treat continues to grow. More cannabinoids are being discovered and explored within the plant. Raphael Mechoulam and Ruth Galili can tell us a little bit more about research involving CBD for schizophrenia, bone marrow transplants, Crohn's disease, diabetes type 1, and rheumatoid arthritis.
They gave huge amounts of cannabidiol to schizophrenics. And they found that the cannabidiol at these huge levels was as good as one of the well-known drugs that being widely used, with one exception. The drug that's being used now causes side effects, and many of the patients, many of the schizophrenics say, I don't want it because it changes my personality. Cannabidiol does not do that. There is a lot of work in animals, especially in autoimmune diseases. There is a physician who is looking at bone marrow replacement. The body doesn't like to have a bone marrow replaced, and as soon as the bone marrow is replaced, the body attacks the bone marrow, and the bone marrow, the new bone marrow, attacks the body, and the ultimate result is that the patient is sick. This is an autoimmune reaction, namely the body attacks itself, autoimmune. So he started giving cannabidiol, high doses of cannabidiol, and yes, he found that indeed the number of sick patients went down by nearly 50%. This is some of these symptoms in bone marrow replacement are very severe. If you go down 50%, that's a lot. Crohn's is also an inflammatory disease, and we showed quite some time that it works on cannabidiol, CBD, works on inflammation. It works very well on inflammation. We've seen that in rheumatoid arthritis, and we published that with a British group, a very distinguished British group, but that was in animals. Why there have been no clinical trials is beyond me.
Inflammation is really among the more primitive expression of the body to foreign organism invasion. is the rheumatoid arthritis. The joints are being destroyed by the cytokine, and I try to see if cannabidiol will improve the condition of the disease. And there was a fantastic effect. The destruction of the bone was really disappeared, and many of the inflammatory reactions disappeared. And the animal did not feel pain, and their joints were not swollen, and they could run. And so this was our first demonstration. In rheumatoid arthritis, the CBD, cannabidiol, helps. And I really believe that in human being it will be the same. The second, very quickly, was diabetes type 1.
Diabetes type 1 is an autoimmune disease. For some strange reason, the body attacks the cells that produce insulin, and the body doesn't have insulin, it has diabetes type 1. We found that in animals, in a very closely related situation with humans, if we give cannabidiol, the non-psychoactive compound, only 30% develop diabetes rather than 100%. Will that be true in humans? We don't know. It has not been done yet. Pity, because it's needed.
In diabetes type 1, there is a period in human being, the sugar in the blood increase. And this is a sign that something is wrong there. I believe that when you will give cannabidiol, during this period of time, you will save the people. Their island will produce insulin, and they wouldn't have to take all their life the medication. And we began only in one hospital with 6 or 8 patients, but they were crying when we had to stop because we didn't have money to give them a pure cannabidiol.
You just heard compelling research for using cannabidiol, or CBD, in bone marrow transplants, type 1 diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis. These scientists see so much potential in their findings, but as you heard from Raphael Mechoulam, it is sadly not being followed up by clinical trials. One of the earliest discoveries about CBD was its use as a protective for the brain. In our first episode, we told you that the United States government even holds a patent on CBD as a neuroprotector. Studies have found that CBD can be administered after strokes and head trauma to drastically reduce brain damage. At Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Professor Esther Shohami has studied this extensively.
When Rafi Mechoulam got me into the field of cannabinoids, I didn't know much about it, and certainly not about the endocannabinoids that the brain has and what, if it has it, what's its role. And Rafi proposed, he said, look, we have this story of the cannabis. We don't know what it does in the brain, but it has to do something. Why won't we look at it? So we had this opportunity when the student came by, knocked on my door and asked if we would like to take him as a PhD student. He was a new immigrant, and found that after traumatic brain injury, there is a marked elevation of the endogenous molecule that the brain produces, which are cannabinoid-like. In Rafi's lab, they have synthesized the same molecule. 1 hour after injury, we treated the mice. To our great surprise and delight, we found that after injecting from outside these molecules, the function of the mice is improved, they are less impaired, they have less edema, which is accumulation of water in the brain, which is one of the most devastating effects of trauma. One of the secondary damage that happens after trauma is inflammation in the brain. And we found that it has many anti-inflammatory properties. So we are not sure exactly how it works, but these molecules are able to induce the endogenous recovery and repair mechanisms of the brain. But the question was, what about the plant? What about the extract of the plant? We didn't work with extracts, but as you know, in Rafi's lab they have synthesized these molecules, and we have tried both THC and CBD, each one of them separately. And better functional outcome was found both with the CBD and with the THC. So if I have to conclude what we know about the role of cannabinoid-like compounds in the brain is they are part of the brain's endogenous neuroprotective mechanisms, and they can be mimicked by molecule from outside, either from the plant or synthetic. We are not a drug company, we are not drug developers and so on, but this is a very important byproduct of our research because there are no drug for trauma. To date, none of the clinical trial, and there have been several of them, billions of dollars, none of them was successful. So there is no drug that is given to a trauma patient in order to improve their function. And I find that this opens a new horizons, and we hope to come up with new findings in the future.
Are you enjoying today's show so far? Are you learning a lot of great information? Do you want to join our movement and support our mission to inform the world on the truth about cannabis? Then please consider supporting our cause by owning this complete series so you can watch it again and share it with a loved one now or in the future. Your support allows us to continue researching the sacred plant and spreading our findings for free. Also, a portion of each sale gets donated to charities that are helping people every day to find relief for their pain and to live a longer, more vibrant life. Just simply click the banner below and join the movement and support our mission. Thank you in advance. It's people like you who are truly helping to change the world. Dr. Yosefa Avraham is studying the effects of CBD on liver disease, and you won't believe what she combines with the CBD to get her results. Let's hear a little bit more about her research.
I'm working for a long time on cannabinoids and in disease. And now we are working on the liver disease and hepatic encephalopathy and the involvement of cannabidiol in liver disease and hepatic encephalopathy. There's no therapeutic agent in order to treat the disease. In liver disease and hepatic encephalopathy, there is 2 to 5 microgram per milliliter of ammonia in the blood, which causes all these brain changes, which can cause the coma and the death. We have shown that by inhibiting the CB1 receptor and stimulating the CB2 receptor, we can manage liver disease and hepatic encephalopathy. So cannabidiol restores liver and brain function. So we can use cannabidiol in a clinical trial. And the same result we got also for the capsaicin, the hot ingredient in red pepper. We can administer it together, and we get very nice results and improvement in liver disease and hepatic encephalopathy. We are testing it now also in fatty liver, and we think that it can be a good solution for this serious disease. I think it's a very important topic, and I hope that people will come and join us in order to develop it.
You just heard about some of the groundbreaking research being done with the sacred plant. Unfortunately, these scientists are frustrated that their work isn't being funded so it can benefit patients. The funding for cannabis research is not going to come from a pharmaceutical industry that puts profits over people. This is why we made this series, and we are so grateful for your support in helping us fund the future of research.
Let's grow up. Let's move into the 21st century and really understand this plant and embrace it, because, oh my God, there's just so much exciting stuff that's happening. The research coming out of Europe and the Middle East and Latin America is just breathtaking.
I guess the war on drugs has functioned as kind of a secular religion, where they view the mission of scientists who are involved in this as just to unearth evidence to support the moral cause rather than have a search for objective material physical truth. And this has created a lot of misconceptions in the minds of the public about the effects of marijuana, because I think a lot of people look at an agency with the title Office of National Drug Control Policy and think that maybe it's an independent clearinghouse for the truth, scientific truth, but that's not actually the way it's written. It was designed to be a propaganda agency. It is a propaganda agency. So what they will do is they'll look for some study that says marijuana is harmful, and they'll use their contacts in the press and get this widely publicized. So the conclusion of the exploratory study will be, there's a possibility that marijuana does this harm, let's study it more. And the ONDCP will take out the part of let's study it more and say, marijuana does this harm, and trumpet it to the media. Well, but people do study it more, and then a year or two later, when the bigger study is finally completed, it'll come out and say, oh, it turned out it was no big deal. And that doesn't get the same publicity because that doesn't have the ONDCP to publicize it. So the truth doesn't have a publicist.
Well, what I hope to find in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of medical cannabis, of course, is legalization so that no patient would have to suffer. My dad always says, why is it that I am able to live due to my zip code, yet somebody else writing me from another state has to die because of their zip code? It should not be this way. So of course, in the next 5 to 10 years, or hopefully sooner, we'll be able to see legalization across the board. We also would love to see better approaches to dosing and formulation, different products, more efficient products, less guesswork, more guidance. If this medicine is helping in some states, it's going to help in the rest. And I think it's a travesty if all 50 states do not come on board.
It's so vital to educate everybody on the healing secrets of the cannabis plant. In this series alone, we have witnessed firsthand patients suffering from anxiety, PTSD, migraines, chronic pain, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, bladder infections, lung cancer, breast cancer, brain tumors, early onset Alzheimer's, epilepsy, and multiple sclerosis. All these patients successfully use the sacred plant to treat themselves. It's truly incredible when you consider how much the sacred plant has to offer mankind. Now let's check back with Jill. Her friend Stacy is accompanying Jill to the hospital for her next set of scans. Let's see if the cannabis oil combined with Jill's chemo regimen has worked synergistically to shrink her tumors.
You with me? Sweetie. I feel really nervous, but I'm so glad you're here. Today is just the scans. I'm getting the CT of the chest, the MRIs, and then I go back on Tuesday to get the results. My dad will come in. Sure. Yep. We'll see. We'll think about it. Think about it. I wish they could tell me today. The worst is waiting all that time.
Good thing I don't have my phone. I'd be checking it every second for the time. It's all right. No, I get nervous being late. You're not going to be late.
Thank you. I'm starting to get nervous.
Put it in the lock or you can hold it.
All right, thanks, Helen. All right, I'll be back.
Okay, love you. Love you too. Okay. I promise. Okay.
I'm going to the hospital for my whole brain radiation session. I finally took the hated step because it became clear that there was deterioration in my right leg. But I will lose my hair, and I don't believe I'd ever get it back. I don't believe I will get well enough for long enough. I have to say that not having had whole brain radiation in August when I was meant to have it, it has given me time to get used to the idea that, okay, now I am, on that slippery slope down where we can see the end. I completed 14 days of whole brain radiation, and the effects are terrible. I've lost my balance. I'm confused. My tongue is burning, and I've lost most of my hair. But the worst of it is that the radiation had only a small effect on my tumors. So I'll continue to take cannabis because it's amazing what cannabinoids can do. They affect just about every disease in the body. That has to reflect the underlying endocannabinoid system. So maybe the endocannabinoid system should be studied and unraveled, much in the same way as the genetic code has been done. It's a really exciting prospect. It's too late for me, but I am still thrilled by the idea of what I might come up with.
My sister Patricia Crone passed away on July 11th, 2015. My name is Diana Crone Frank. This is Patricia, and this is me. I think we were 6 and 8 at the time. And we had a very happy childhood, and I miss her. I miss her terribly. I mean, it is just, after she had whole brain radiation, which she should never have had in my mind, she then was put on Avastin and kept going with the cannabis. And when she died, she was vastly diminished intellectually and in any other way. But she had no cancer. And it was not because of the whole brain radiation. It was because of the Avastin and cannabis. How much one played into the other, how much Avastin did it, how much cannabis did it, there's no way to tell. But she had no cancer. Her death certificate says she died of brain damage due to radiation. Thank you so much for watching this series, The Sacred Plant. And thank you for allowing me to share my sister's story. It's a great, good thing for me to feel that she's still out there promoting and urging people to look into this important potential medicine.
We've been following the story of Patricia, and she has tenaciously sought out ways to treat her cancer. My heart goes out to Diana and her family over the loss of her sister. As we've seen throughout these series, Patricia was a beautiful person, full of humor, warmth, and intellect. The world has lost someone unique and special who can never be replaced. I'm also saddened to learn that Patricia actually was cancer-free when she died from the effects of the whole brain radiation. Patricia was an esteemed scholar and academic, and she was onto something about cannabis. She knew through her own research and personal experience that it could potentially treat and beat her stage 4 cancer. We'll never know if Patricia would still be with us today had she chosen to continue fighting her cancer with cannabis instead of submitting to whole brain radiation. Patricia bravely shared her journey to educate us all about the sacred plant, and we have a responsibility to honor her by supporting cannabis research and education. Now let's get some updates on the people you've met throughout these series, including our final visit with Jill to hear the results of her latest scans. In the first episode, you heard the story of my father-in-law, Stan, and Stan was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer which metastasized to his brain. He was put into hospice care with weeks to live. When my wife Corinne and I gave him medical cannabis, he made a miraculous recovery, and he still lives cancer-free today, more than 7 years later. In episode 2, we met with the former NFL tackle Kyle Turley. His injuries from football left him suicidal with early onset Alzheimer's and addicted to opiates. Kyle credits the sacred plant with getting his life back. He's now a board member on the Gridiron Greats Assistant Fund, an organization providing medical care to retired NFL players in dire need. In episode 4, we met Don, whose cancerous tumor disappeared after treatment with cannabinoids. We're happy to report that Don's still doing well and is completely cancer-free. Also in episode 4, we met Andrew, who survived brain cancer for 5 years without any recurrences. Andrew continues to thrive and remains cancer-free. Andrew also volunteers as a mentor to cancer patients and continues to research the medicinal applications of cannabinoids. In episode 5, we met Diana, who co-founded the cannabis collective Miriam's Hope after successfully treating her mother Miriam's terminal brain tumor and extending her life. And I'm sad to report that since the time of our filming, Miriam tragically passed away. But Diana and Jeff are still providing thousands of patients with cannabis oil through Miriam's Hope, and a portion of the proceeds raised by our series will go to sponsor medical cannabis patients in California who can't afford this medicine. Thanks to your support, they can receive it for free from Miriam's Hope. Now let's check in with Jill, who we've been following closely through these series as she fights her stage 4 cancer.
It's always nerve-wracking to go into scans, and for the past 3 years, I've had stability. So every time I get a stable scan report, I will try something different and kind of do my own clinical trial with myself. So previously, I was doing a 3-to-1 ratio, meaning I was getting 3 times the amount of THC to CBD, and I was doing that for a while. After the last stable scan, I switched things up to a 1-to-1 ratio. I could have brought down the amount of THC, but I didn't. I decided to keep the higher dose of the THC and bring the CBD up to match the THC. So 1 part CBD to 1 part THC. Did that for 4 months and got 20% shrinkage. I will say this time, I did a 1-to-1 ratio. I have been drinking a lot of matcha tea, and there are studies with EGCG and synergistic effects with temolazide. Okay, so they're comparing this to my last scan. So no new metastases, seeing they don't see any new growths, which is fantastic. In the past, that has been the case as well, and that shows stability, which is also fantastic. I get nervous when there's a change, even though this is a change for good. It's hard for me to take this news and be really happy about it. I know I should be, and I am, but it's also scary. It's all scary. But here you can see the pancreas. In the beginning, it started out that it was over 3 centimeters. At this last, the 2 scans ago, it was 1.7 times 1.7, and now it's down to 1.1 and 1.0. So to me, that's significant. I was really surprised that I had shrinkage because I haven't heard that since I first started the chemotherapies. So I was excited, it's a little overwhelming. I think a lot of the studies aren't even with as high of a dosing that I'm taking. I think I'm taking, I have really good medicine, and I'm thankful for that. And it's about as high of a dose that you could find out there. People need to know what's going on. They need to hear stories like mine and like all these other people that are having these amazing effects from the cannabis. And they should, it's so safe that why not try it? Even if the stories are anecdotal, but they're not. My doctor says they're clinical. They are clinical. When I first got my shrinkage, I was on a chemo that was an mTOR inhibitor. I was not supposed to get shrinkage. And I got it, and I got a lot of shrinkage. And then I had a big tumor coming out of my neck. My doctor was preparing for radiation, and I increased the cannabinoids. I switched from the tinctures to the oils, which are much more potent, and the tumor coming out of my neck disappeared. It went away. If I didn't use the cannabis, I would have had to radiate my neck, and I might not be here talking to you because I might have lost my voice. Cannabis doesn't cause damage. It causes happiness. It causes hunger. I'm gaining weight. Before I was on cannabis, I could not eat. The chemotherapy makes you not want to eat. That's another issue. People are wasting away. They can go on cannabis and get their appetite back. They can go on cannabis and their sores in their mouth go away. I had sores in my mouth and it was horrible to eat. It hurt. As soon as I started using oral cannabis, and swishing it around, all my mouth sores disappeared. I tried all the medicines they have for it, nothing worked until I tried the cannabis. So it's really tricky. There needs to be more studies. There needs to be studies for the sequencing of everything, what to try first, where the synergistic effects are, where the entourage effects are. There needs to be more studies, and they need to be documenting the patients that are doing the studies on themselves. You know, I'm a single mother. I'm going to do what it takes to survive this cancer.
I'm so happy for Jill and the incredible results she has received from taking cannabis oils combined with chemotherapy. I'm also thrilled to report that Jill continues to see more shrinkage of her tumors. Her results were so fantastic that her oncologist even recommended she take a break from her chemotherapy treatments. We're nearing the end of the series, so let's take a quick look back at where we began. We showed you how the sacred plant was used to heal people for thousands of years, and only recently has it overcome the stigma that has restricted it for so long. Let's hear some final thoughts from our experts on how we can move forward to reclaim this healing power.
This plant addresses so many of the solutions that we need in our society today, a society that in many ways is out of control, with prescription drug prices bankrupting people, with minds being destroyed by the toxic side effects of pharmaceutical painkillers. Cannabis provides so many solutions. It is safer, it is more effective, it is vastly more affordable, it is open source, and it is time to bring it back to our consciousness and our access as open source medicine for humanity.
Certainly believe that so many chronic diseases, so many problems, maybe even cancer, there's a potential curative there that I'd like to see have been demonstrated in 20 years. Slowing MS, maybe slowing Lou Gehrig's disease. All of these things have been suggested in laboratories, and it's very exciting.
So today we're in a unique situation in terms of the development of technology. Just as the printing press was such a big transition early on, now we have the internet. So what this means is that people today have immediate access to scientific research that's published all over the world. And if people develop a respect for science and a search for the truth, then they might be able to free themselves from being prejudiced based on a political position in assessing questions of this sort.
The American public understands it at this point, and it's just the politicians in Washington who will not step up and solve the problem that they created. When I was young, I thought 5 years, maybe 10, we'll have this all taken care of. That would have been 1985.
We're at a point of human consciousness now that it is in a major shift. Light bulbs are just going on across the country, and people are starting to realize, wait a minute, am I going to trust the Western way of life, what Western governments have told us for the past 100 years? And so we're seeing that shift. We're also seeing with the internet, more scientific studies are being exposed to the public. The mainstream media and governments are no longer gatekeepers, keeping this information from the public. It's flooding into the minds of middle America. And that's why you're starting to see people engage in behaviors that they never would have thought of even 5 years ago. You know, I have my Midwestern family telling me they support medicinal marijuana when 15 years ago, my grandma and mother were taping these news segments telling me how horrific marijuana was for me.
I mean, we're really seeing this incredible movement happening right now where because of the rapid dissemination of information online, it's just so easy now for someone to share their healing story. And people are just doing it every day, right? Sharing their healing stories. And then people looking and trying to heal are finding these stories from others and taking and learning from them and incorporating those things into their own life. So I think we're approaching a tipping point in the way that the public looks at healthcare and the way that the public looks at the pharmaceutical and the medical industry. And so what the pharmaceutical industry is up against is, again, the empowerment of people. People are becoming empowered to heal themselves. And the more people are empowered to heal themselves, the less money will be generated for the medical and pharmaceutical industrial complex. So yeah, there's a lot at stake. There is a lot at stake. They know it. That's why there's a lot of activism against cannabis, right? And activism against nutrition and natural therapies.
It is important for us to come together. It's important for us to come together, and it's important for people to realize that there's a lot of power in our numbers. And if we all came together, and if people are educated on this plant and they come together, we can change things. We can force our representatives to change these laws, The problem is that there's this propaganda campaign still that's going on to make you think that this is an evil weed.
I'm here to say that this plant is medicinal. There's numerous medicinal properties. This mischaracterization of this plant has been a disservice to the people who need it, to the people who are suffering, who are in pain, who are gravely ill or chronically ill. And it's a travesty that in one zip code, a patient can have it, in another zip code, a patient has to die.
Our future with cannabis is a very bright future. If we have the wisdom and the courage to embrace this sacred plant, then it will make our futures brighter. We will have less pain and less suffering. We can have lower healthcare costs. We can have reduced rates of disease. We need to have hospitals and doctors prescribing cannabis and cannabis extracts with different levels of different cannabinoids for different conditions. If we are willing to embrace that future, it can be a very bright future for all of us with less suffering and less disease. I want a future where we all have access to medicine that the drug companies can't intellectually patent. We can't do this alone, whether we're scientists or journalists or bloggers or customers. We can't do it alone. One thing you can do to get involved and help support this entire movement is to support this docuseries and support those who are making this information available to you, because we need this message to continue to grow. Join this movement and help us create a revolution for humanity in natural medicine.
I thank you again for taking this journey with me and to learn about the life-saving benefits of the sacred plant. Please join us in helping you, your loved ones, and the world to benefit from the God-given healing powers of this plant. Let's stand together to overcome the lies, deceptions, and legalities so that all of us can thrive rather than suffer. It has been a privilege being your host and guiding you through these series. The knowledge of the sacred plant is something that we cannot afford to suppress any longer. Every precious minute that my wife Corinne and I get to spend with our father Stan, I credit to cannabis. It has changed the course of my life, and I feel a responsibility to share that with the world. I hope that this series has empowered you to discover that cannabis can help you or your loved ones. Thank you, and God bless. I invite you to join our movement, support our mission, and help us save lives. We're a small company that's committed to the truth and to helping humanity. Since we don't have the unlimited resources that Big Pharma has, we need to work together to educate and empower more people about the healing benefits of the sacred plant. When you support our mission by owning the complete series today, you allow us to continue research, interview, expose, and share this knowledge with the world for free. If you learned something, been inspired, want to watch it again, share it with a loved one, or just love how it feels to support a good cause, consider owning the sacred plant, Healing Secrets Exposed today. Simply click the banner below to join the movement and support our mission. Thank you in advance. It's people like you who are truly helping to change the world.